Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024. My next guest, Bill Holter, is someone who has warned you for years that this is what they were up to behind the scenes. And this stagflationary environment that we are now in, that is making the 1970s look like a picnic, Bill told us was coming and who was behind it. And as opposed to people thanking Bill, Bill got a lot of heat, as did his partner, Jim St. Clair, for telling you what you needed to know, and it might not be what the syndicate wanted you to know about. Bill continues to tell you what you need to know, and it's not what the deep state wants you to hear. Little background on Bill Holter. After a lengthy career in financial services, Bill moved his family out of the United States back in 2006. He then returned in 2011 and currently makes his home in the great state of Texas. He joined Miles Franklin, milesfranklin.com, as an associate writer in 2012 and posted commentaries there until 2015. He is still a precious metals broker at milesfranklin.com. He is now working in collaboration, as I mentioned, with his partner, the great Jim St. Clair, in helping to educate and enlighten folks through JS Mindset, M-I-N-E-S-E-T, jsmindset.com. Bottom line, folks, Bill Holter is one of the best forensic economic analysts in the world. Bill, welcome back to the Operation Freedom show and platform.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
So, Bill, I want to start this segment with a clip from the great economist Joe Biden as he discussed this issue of inflation. Derek, hit it.
Do you believe that you and your administration bear some measure of responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing across the country?
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Well, we don't really.
Oh, no, not his fault. Not his fault, Bill.
It's Putin's fault.
Right. It's the MAGA group's fault, right? It's Putin's fault. It's everybody's fault, but his unending requests for the printing of money.
Right, and they've actually said that they've not printed enough, otherwise inflation would be lower if they printed more, which is absurd.
In fact, though, the Congressional Budget Office, which is fairly non-denominational this week, came out and they released a report that squarely placed the rate of inflation on Biden's monetary stimulus programs during the past year and a half. The CBO noted that Biden is culpable for the record high inflation creating undue pressure on American workforce in its latest annual report. Also, it said that Biden's preferred fix increasing taxes in order to get inflation under control, which is quite unique. Increasing taxes will only worsen the economy.
Right, and the reason being, when you increase taxes, there's less money on the street for the population to spend, and we're already in a recession. I mean, we've already had one official quarter downward. This quarter, I'm sure, will also be negative, so we're already in a recession, and you do not raise taxes during a recession. On top of that, the Federal Reserve just started raising interest rates. They say they're going to raise another 50 basis points in June. And more importantly, they say that they're going to start to shrink their balance sheet. Shrinking their balance sheet means they're going to sell bonds, they're going to sell credit. But the question is, who's the buyer? And at what price? So by shrinking their balance sheet, that's the Fed taking more money out of the system in the face of a recession. So what they're doing is they're doubling down on bad, and it's going to make it will turn into a depression. That's where we are at this point.
And at the end of the week, he came up with this suggestion that his Biden inflation response, 1, institute more price controls, 2, introduce more green energy subsidies, and 3, go after companies for price gouging.
Well, none of that works. Price controls, you've seen price controls tried all over the world. We tried it back in the 70s, but you've seen it all over the world in socialist nations. Venezuela, that's a perfect example. What happens when there's price controls? If somebody can't sell something for a profit, they're just not going to sell it. So what happens is that creates shortages, and shortages beget more inflation. As far as price gouging on companies, I mean, you're talking about capitalism. And if one company is price gouging and another company sees that they can sell the same good at a fair profit, they're going to do it. So a company that is actually gouging is going to have very few sales because they'll be replaced by other producers or suppliers, what have you. So, I mean, that's 3 strikes and you're out with those 3.
Then, of course, we had Vladimir Lenin, who said, quote, the way to crush the bourgeoisie, the working class, is to grind them between the millstones of taxation and inflation, end quote. Bill, that's the Biden-Harris-Obama formula for what's happening right now.
Exactly. And interestingly, this past week, and I don't know if this was a direct quote from Putin. I believe it is, but it came out of Russia. Is that the dollar and the euro are toast? We've created our own inflation through money printing, and we talked about this 2 months ago, or even more than 2 months ago. The aspect of the war, if you go back to Putin's original speech prior to the operation, basically what he was saying is we want free and fair trade, but we want trade for something real. And what they've come out and said is that the dollar, the euro, Western currencies are fiat, meaning they're not backed by anything. So if you're trading for dollars or if you're trading for euros, you're giving something real away and getting something that has truly no value in return. And what it's done or doing is it's creating a 2-tier monetary system across the world.
And then we had J.P. Morgan Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon, this week say, quote, or hurricane is coming for the United States economy. Brace yourself, end quote.
Do you think he did that to warn people, or do you think he did that so he's on the record saying, I warned you?
Oh, he's on the record to say I warned you. Because in the meantime, as you have pointed out, Bill, for years, he and his company have been criminally manipulating the precious metals markets down on a paper standpoint so they could accumulate huge amounts of physical gold and silver so that when this hurricane hits, hey, guess what? The SSJP Morgan is fine.
Right. They're protected. Yeah, and interesting, Dave, the third Friday of this month is a triple witching expiration. And from what I understand, there are $3.2 trillion of derivatives that have to settle. I think this is the biggest one ever. And that's in this very same month that, as I just mentioned, the Federal Reserve, for the first time since 2008, they're going to begin shrinking their balance sheet. I think by the number is $95 billion per month. It's a really, really dangerous cocktail.
So, Bill, let's talk about the precious metals markets, because in times of instability, it's been gold and silver that has been the protector, the life preserver for individuals' financial well-being. Is that going to be the case this time, or is it changed?
No, I mean, you can't change 5,000 years of history. Historically, if you believed that bad times were coming, you would move into cash. And 100 years ago, cash was gold. Cash was silver. Mm-hmm. Then we had the confiscation in 1933, and in 1971, Nixon took us entirely off the gold standard, and the dollar ended up being propped up by dollar flows from petroleum, from oil and gas. What I'm getting at is cash at this point is fake. Cash is trash. Dollars, euros, yen, they're all credit-based, and the whole system is based on credit. So moving to cash now, you may feel good, but when the smoke clears, you're going to be broke, because the currencies themselves are going to decline in value, and you also have the risk of your institution failing, closing their doors, bailing in. If you look at FDIC regulations now, they've already come right out and said, and they did this as far back as 2014, there will be no bailouts. There will be bail-ins. And I think it was Cyprus back in 2013 or 14 that they did that. They did a bail-in, and what that entailed was you went to bed Friday evening with 100 euros in your bank, and you woke up Monday and you only had 30. So if you feel the need, and you should feel the need to move to cash, cash is gold and silver. That is real money that cannot bankrupt. And that's what this is all about. The world collectively is going to go through a bankruptcy. And gold and silver are the only two monies on the planet that cannot default.
So, Bill, educate our listeners in the action in gold and silver the past couple weeks, because there has been some egregious, let's call it, activity in the precious metals arena the past couple weeks.
Well, we've seen it for years and years. The last couple of weeks was just another example. There have been times where 10% of global production of silver or global production of gold are sold on the paper markets in 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, who in the world actually has 10% of global production of real metal? And whoever the trader is, if a trader was trying to get the best price, why would they dump so much all at once? Why wouldn't they do it in a coy manner. You do it in pieces. But what they do is they push a button which says sell, and it's all sold, and it wipes out all the bids, and it knocks the price down, and it illustrates what the Fed and what the Treasury want you to believe is that gold is bad and dollars are good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this has been all about. And the reason being, if gold were $3,000 or $5,000 an ounce right now, you would have the Fed and you would have the Treasury's credibility being called into question. You'd also, it would make it much, much more difficult for the Treasury to fund their deficits.
So, Bill, play this out over the next several months.
As I said, I think we're headed into a global bankruptcy, and I don't know where it's going to start, what country, but you can pretty much bet after 48 hours, the entire world will be infected like dominoes. I think that, and you've already seen it. You're seeing it wherever you look, whether it be stocks, bonds, even real estate. Real estate's starting to turn down.
Mm-hmm.
And what was a virtuous cycle to the upside is now going to be a virtuous cycle to hell. When their portfolio's up, their house is worth more, they spend money. But
Mm-hmm.
when they look at their 401k statements and they realize, wow, I'm down 35%, they look around their neighborhood and they see all of a sudden a whole bunch of houses coming up for sale and the prices are being lowered, they feel less wealthy. So they spend less. And that will become a virtuous cycle downward along with higher interest rates. Just remember this, interest rates have doubled. Mortgage
Mm-hmm.
rates have doubled over the last 6 or 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is if you qualified to buy $1 million house last year, you only qualify to buy a $500,000 house this year. So that just knocked the legs out from under demand.
Mm-hmm. And Bill, as I mentioned in your introduction, you're a precious metals broker. So at Miles Franklin, educate our listeners on where we are with supply, where we are with retail demand, and where we are with premiums.
Yeah, retail demand is extremely strong. Supply, especially in silver, is spotty. I'm a huge proponent of junk silver. I think it's the best form for Americans to own. 8 months ago, a year ago, we could, if I got a $2 million, $5 million order, I could just pretty much press a button and get it done. 3-4 months ago, it got more difficult. And as of now, I think putting $1 million order in junk silver together might take a week's time. Premiums have exploded. I mean, you're looking at $13 over spot on Eagles. You're looking at 8 and change over spot on junk. The reason being the demand is there, but the supply is not. And I think about it on a Silver Eagle, you're looking at what, $22 spot with a $13 premium. That's over 50%.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ever seen anything like that in my life.
And right, so I mean, you've been doing this for decades, and this is something you haven't ever seen in your life.
Ever. The only time closest to this was 2013, when we had $9 paper silver, and you couldn't buy any silver for under, say, $15, $16, but it's still not 50% premium.
And Bill, we have entities around the world, Russia, China, in public now, speaking that they will back their currencies with hard assets,
Right.
Gold, silver, oil, natural gas, you name it. Educate our listeners on the significance of that, because what they're now saying in public was labeled rumor and innuendo behind the curtain that, well, this is what the rumor is, but it'll never happen. No, it's being spoken of in public, and educate our listeners on the significance of that and what it means for gold and silver.
Right. Well, it's fact at this point. There's no way anybody can say it's conspiracy theory. It's absolute fact. And what they're doing is they're telling the world, we are making our currencies real. Our currencies are going to have the backing of commodities. It's basically inside and outside money. Inside money is freely printed by the West, and outside money is commodity-based or commodity-backed money. What this is going to do is it's going to speed the demise of the dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, etc.
Bill, in our last minute and a half, educate our listeners on how they can get in touch with you and about Miles Franklin.
Sure. You can reach me. You can go to our website, jsmindset.com, mineset.com. If you want to reach me directly, my email address is bholter@hotmail.com. Miles Franklin has been in business, I think, over 30 years now, and they are one of the 23 direct dealers to the U.S. Mint. They get products from all over the world, and I do all my business through them because I believe them to be 100% trustworthy, and that's the way I do my business.